Pretty Girl Club. Welcome back to the Decentering Men series. In this episode, I want to talk about how most marriages are codependent. Have you ever listened to a man talk when he talks about his wife? If you ask a man, "Why do you love your wife?" he will start describing codependency. He will say things like, "Oh, she held me down when I had nothing." First of all, let's think about what that even means. Holding someone down. It means that the person is unstable. You're holding them down. You're holding them in place. Without you, they would fall apart. They were broken and you held them together. So you are spending the entire relationship trying to fix him, trying to save him. Most women have kind of this savior complex, especially if you were raised Christian, because the entire premise of your religion is based on a savior. So most women who have a Christian background, they naturally have this savior complex. And so they will get a man and then they will try to hold him down financially. They'll try to hold him down emotionally, meaning that he was emotionally unstable. Some of these men are mentally ill. They may have bipolar, anxiety, they're high functioning alcoholics, and you are holding them in place, literally holding them down emotionally or holding them down financially and logistically because he is broken. He would be broken without you. So, whenever a man says things like, "She's my rock, she's my foundation, she's the glue that holds our family together," that's codependency. It means that the entire relationship is actually held together by the woman. This is why I say that women are actually the protectors and the providers. The women are usually the ones who are protecting the man emotionally. You're protecting him because when it comes to sex, you don't tell him that he's bad at sex. So you're protecting his ego. You don't tell him that his breath smells bad, he's out of shape, and that you're not into him physically. So you're protecting his emotions. You protect your family and your children by not telling them that their dad is a dusty. Some of the girls in the Discord, they were talking about how their children's fathers, how their children will still put the father on a pedestal because in the child's eyes, he's daddy, right? So children naturally love their parents. You are naturally wired to love your parents because you depend on them. So one of the ways that women actually protect and provide is by protecting their child's view of their father. So, all of the women who have these dusty baby daddies and they don't bash their baby daddies, that's actually a form of protection because not only are you protecting his image, but you are also protecting the emotional state of your child. So, that's another way that women are actually the protectors. And then, as far as providing, women will provide all kinds of goods and services to men throughout a marriage. Don't even get me started on if you're an educated woman and your husband owns a business of some sort. Think about Elon Musk and his first wife. Think about Jeff Bezos and his first wife. Think about Steve Harvey and his first wife. Almost every successful man that you see today has had some sort of woman who was his starter wife who helped build him up. She helped him to buy the first house. So now he has more confidence when he's buying the second house. He knows the entire process now. He knows how to get the real estate agent. He knows who to call and where to go. He wouldn't have had that knowledge if it weren't for his wife who helped him the first time around. So a lot of these women are just starter wives. Most marriages are extremely codependent. And I believe that the women are the true protectors and providers. One of the other ways that women protect men is if a guy is a perv. If a guy is like touching on children, or if a man does domestic violence or something like that, the women who don't charge him or they don't call the police, they allow him to run free. They don't care about the violence that is caused in their family because they don't want to send another man to jail. That's a form of protection. So you're actually protecting his freedom. You are literally protecting the freedom of a man who is abusive. That's another way that women act as protectors and providers. You're protecting him by not telling the police when he did something to you. You didn't tell the police when he did something to your children. You're protecting his image by telling all of your friends and family that he makes more money than he actually does. I'm thinking of what's her name? Simone Biles and Jonathan Owens, how the entire time she was kind of protecting his image. So she is the protector and provider in that relationship. She was trying to protect him in the sense of making him think that he's the prize. And with this whole conversation about the prize, why can't we both be the prize? Why is it only the man is the prize, and as a woman, you ain't shit, basically? So Simone Biles, she spends a lot of time protecting his image. She wants the world to see Jonathan Owens as being this upstanding man. That's another form of protecting. And then when it comes to providing, if you're paying any bills at all, you are technically providing. I don't care if it's 90-10, if it's 80-20, if it's 70-30, or 50-50, you are giving him a discount on bills. And for the people who say, oh, well, that's a part of being an adult. Okay, so if we're just both going to be adults, why not just live separately then? If 50-50 simply means we are each paying our way and we're both just, living our lives as adults, why can't you get a duplex and then he lives in one side of the duplex and pays all of his bills and you live in the other side of the duplex and you pay all of your bills then? Since you're so 50-50 and all it is, if it's completely even and your lifestyle is not changing at all and the workload you're doing is the exact same as living by yourself, then why not just get a duplex and you just live as next door neighbors? You can still sleep together in the bed every single night. You can still go to each other's homes every single night. So why aren't men promoting that then when it comes to 50-50? Why is that not an option? Oh, because you're being disingenuous and you know that 50-50 is not actually 50-50. It's the woman paying 50% of the bills and doing the majority of the cooking, majority of the cleaning. She's giving you massages. She's rubbing your feet. She's trying to keep it spicy in the bedroom. She's reading all of these books on how to be a good wife, how to please a man, satisfy a man sexually. So she's offering more to the relationship. So that's why men are the main ones who are advocating for 50-50. I've actually never met a woman who purposely advocates for 50-50. Like, have you ever met an older woman in her 80s who says, oh, if I had the option, I would go 50-50? No, every single woman, if she has the option, she would choose to be provided for. The only women that are okay with the 50-50 is because that's all they can attract and that's all they can get. And they feel like maybe that's all they deserve or that's all that's available to them. So that's why they're promoting it. But if that woman had a man who actually came into her life who offered to take the load off of her shoulders, or if her own husband says, hey, babe, I just got a raise, so you can be a stay at home wife now, or like, I'm just going to pay all the bills, then she would probably do it and just save her money, even if she kept working. But another sign of codependency is actually fantasy. Anytime you are clinging to a fantasy, it could be a romantic fantasy, it could be sexual fantasy, it could be limerence. So I talk about limerence, which is kind of like femcel fantasies. So you're fantasizing about white men. I feel like a lot of people who watch Bridgerton and all of these romance shows and stuff like that, a lot of that is playing into women's fantasies. There's a reason why I don't watch TV. There's a reason why I don't watch movies. There's a reason why I don't read a whole bunch of romance books and stuff like that, because it's training your brain to actually become more and more codependent over time. Because the more you rewire your brain to operate in fantasy, the more likely you are to become codependent if you find a guy who reminds you of that fantasy. And I don't think that women are purposely like, oh, I met this guy, he reminds me of the Bridgerton guy, so now I'm just like in love or whatever. No, I think it's more so when the guy plays into the fantasy. Men know that women want a man who meets her romantic or sexual fantasies, or in some cases, her financial fantasy. But anytime you're in a relationship that is not based on reality, if it's based on fantasy of any kind, that is actually underneath the codependency umbrella. Another sign of a codependent marriage is you're constantly disappointed. Have you ever noticed that a lot of married women, as time goes on in their marriage, every day they're disappointed by something new? They're disappointed that he's leaving his socks on the floor. They're disappointed that he left pee on the toilet. They're disappointed that he's looking at porn again. They're disappointed that he's messaging his high school sweetheart on Facebook, even though you guys just got married 2 weeks ago. They're disappointed that he is fantasizing about celebrities or looking at them. They're constantly disappointed. That's actually a sign of codependency. It's because the woman was basing her entire marriage on something that did not exist. She was basing her marriage on romance novels. She was basing her marriage on movies. And then once she actually gets in the marriage, she is hit with the reality of who that man is. Because another sign of codependency is you idealize the other person. So usually the woman has the tendency to idealize the man. It's not really the other way around because married men idealize the women that they're not married to. Just so you know, being married, that doesn't make him faithful. Being married is not going to stop him from flirting with women at work. Being married is not going to take away his feelings for his ex. It's not going to stop him from being attracted to other women. So, a lot of women want to get married based on codependency. You're idealizing him. He's the great white hope. He's your white male savior. You're hoping that he can come in and just pay all your bills and sweep you off your feet. And he only has eyes for you. And he never looks at porn. And he makes you feel special. A lot of that is based on idealism because he can't actually make you feel special 24/7. That's actually impossible and unrealistic. So that's how I know that a lot of marriages are codependent because the woman will come in and she will be greatly disappointed after the honeymoon because she realizes, "Oh wait, I'm married now and I don't feel special 24/7." Yeah, that's because you idealized that man that you got married to. Another sign of a codependent relationship is there's a lack of friendship. There is no friendship within the relationship. So it's something else. It could be she is paying bills. It could be they're just having sex. Maybe it's just something physical. Maybe they are just intensely attracted to one another, but it's not based on a genuine friendship. I actually have a psychological theory that a lot of men do not know how to be friends with women. I actually believe that men and women, generally speaking, cannot be friends because a friendship is actually a deep emotional connection. That's literally the definition of the word friendship, a deep emotional connection. So you're telling me that a gender who, generally speaking, tends to have alexithymia, which is the lack of emotional awareness, so he doesn't even know his own emotions, but somehow he's able to form a perfect emotional connection and friendship with you because you are his wife. That doesn't even make logical sense. So, a person who's emotionally unintelligent is supposed to know how to develop an emotional connection? Using what tools? Name 5 emotional tools that your husband has. Ready, set, go. A lot of men don't even know how to emotionally regulate themselves. They don't even know how to sit down and be quiet if their football team loses. I've seen guys punch holes in walls and like start cussing people out or throwing shit because their football team lost. So, a lot of guys have no emotional regulation. They will break their Xbox or break their controllers and throw stuff because they lost on a video game. So, no emotional skills whatsoever. But suddenly, because you married him, he knows how to build a healthy emotional friendship. He knows how to build a healthy emotional connection with you. And it's solely based on friendship. Oh, that's not codependent. A lot of men get with women because they want to brainwash that woman into being what he wants her to be. So, for example, let's say you move to your dream city, but your husband, he doesn't want to live in Los Angeles. And so then he says, "Hey, I know that you just got your doctorate. I know that you have a career, but I don't want to live here." And so he gradually starts talking crap about your career, or he starts nagging you. He's talking crap about that city or that region of the United States. He's trying to change you. He's hoping that he can gradually change you. Or the men who cheat and then they say things like, "Well, I have to cheat. Men are visual creatures and you gained weight, so that's why I cheated." He's trying to change you. He wants you to have the mindset that serves him. That's a form of trying to change you. He wants to change your mind. I've noticed that generally speaking, men have a pattern of wanting to control a woman's mind. You're not allowed to be a free thinker. You're not allowed to be the boss. Do you know how many men I have that come on to my YouTube channel all the time and they try to correct me? Like they try to correct my talking points, they try to correct what I'm saying. And it's like, excuse me, this is a flourishing women's YouTube channel. So, like, why are you even here? You're so shocked that women can have a successful online community without your input. A lot of men are literally shocked when you are successful without them. Like, he is shocked that you went to school and you graduated and you got a good job. He's shocked. So he wants to change you. That's a sign of codependency. Trying to change your partner, whether you want to change her mind or change her body, it's all the same. You're still trying to change them. It's a form of control. So you didn't want an equitable relationship. You wanted someone you could control. Same thing with the whole 50-50 thing. It's not about equity, because if it truly was, men would have no problem living in a duplex where there's one house on one side and one house on the other side. We each pay our bills. We each do our own dishes in our respective apartments. We can sleep in the same bed. We can have sleepovers at each other's places every single night. But then we go back home. Men wouldn't do that because then they couldn't take advantage of you. That's why. So that's proof that 50-50 is not actually 50-50. Because if you split up the actual physical house that you're living in, and you split up the actual physical auto pay on the checking account, you already know that the men, they wouldn't get the domestic benefits of having a woman living with him. He wouldn't get the free domestic labor. Another sign of a codependent relationship is you feel resentful and unloved. Some of the loneliest people I've ever met in my life are married people. Unfortunately, I actually do have a lot of married friends. I know a lot of married women because of my background. Unfortunately, every single married woman that I know is currently on antidepressants of some sort or drugs of some sort. So it could be marijuana, it could be any sort of gateway drug. Um, every single woman except one. And the only one that's not is an extremely religious woman, and I wouldn't trade places with her ever. Some of the loneliest women I've ever met in my life are women who are in these super high commitment relationships with these codependent men. Why do you think men want to get rid of no fault divorce? Why do you think men want to try to force women to have babies? Why do you think men don't want women to have careers? It's because it makes it too easy for you to leave. They don't want you to be independent. They want you to be codependent. That's why they say they don't like independent women. Yeah, because they want you to be codependent. The opposite of independent is codependent. So he needs you to depend on him emotionally so that he can depend on you financially and domestically and to birth his children. A lot of men want to live vicariously through their children, especially if that man is average. He wants to have a son so that he can get a redo because he didn't self actualize. And so he's hoping that by having access to your womb, that not only will you become more codependent on him, it's going to make it harder for you to leave. That's why he wants you to have his kids, because then you can't leave him, because then you would be making your children suffer. So this is why he wants you to have kids. Because then he gets to guilt you and say, oh, well, now you're going to make our child grow up in a single parent home. They love talking crap about single parents and single parent homes. Yeah, that's because they are codependent. They're trying to change you. They want to change your mind. They want to change you from a child free woman into a woman who will have their kids. And they want you to have their kids so that it's harder for you to leave them. And so that they can hopefully have sexual access to you for at least the next 18 years. But a lot of married women feel very resentful against their husbands and very unloved. I actually have had married women admit that they are jealous of single women. I've had married women admit that to me before. They're jealous of the freedom that a woman has, even if you're not single, even if you have a boyfriend or something, but you're just not married to him. I've had married women admit that they're jealous of the freedom, especially if you don't live with the guy, because you can just go back home. You can go and have your fun. You can go on your dates or whatever. Then you come back home. You're by yourself. You don't have to clean up after anyone. Not to mention the fact that a lot of men exhibit the four horsemen in relationships. So if you study conflict resolution, they talk about like four signs that you're going to end up getting a divorce. And that's criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. So a lot of men will verbally attack your personality or your character when you bring up something wrong in the relationship. Like if you say, "Hey, babe, it really hurt my feelings when you did this," suddenly he will start attacking your personality. He's using what's called the Darvo manipulation tactic. So it stands for deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. So first, he will start off by denying whatever you said he did. "Hey, it hurt my feelings when you were staring at that girl's boobs at the restaurant for 5 minutes." "What are you talking about? I didn't do that." Okay, that's denying. You're just a jealous, insecure person. That's attacking. "You always do this to me. Nothing I do is good enough for you." Now he just reversed the victim and offender. Now he made you the bad guy. You think he's not good enough. You're ungrateful. You're a bad person and you're insecure. So do you see how he used the Darvo manipulation tactic when all you said was, "It hurt my feeling when you were staring at that woman's boobs"? So that's another sign of a codependent relationship. You're in a relationship with a guy who uses the Darvo manipulation strategy: deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. So now he's trying to change you, which is a sign of manipulation. He's trying to psychologically brainwash you into silence so that from here on out, if he does anything else wrong, you can't say anything because he's going to deny it, no matter what it is. "Hey, babe, I noticed that you didn't pay that bill on time." "No, I didn't. You always accuse me of not paying bills on time. You should be grateful that I'm paying bills at all." So he just denied and attacked you, reversing the victim and offender. You're ungrateful. You just look at him as not being good enough. So now he gets to be the victim, and you're the offender. Another thing men will show is contempt. So attacking your sense of self. "Hey, I feel like I'm a really confident person." "Whoa, you're cocky. That's conceited." Okay, so he's attacking your sense of self. You're not allowed to self identify as being confident. You're not allowed to self identify as being good at psychology. You're not allowed to self identify as a successful businesswoman. So that's a form of contempt. He's not allowing you to identify the positive qualities about yourself. And if you do say anything positive about yourself, he's going to shoot it down. "Hey, I think I would make a really good lawyer." "Oh, no, you wouldn't." Okay, that's contempt. He's attacking your sense of self. He's attacking a part of your identity. Or like when men say that you're not feminine, you're acting masculine. That's a sign of contempt. He's attacking your identity. He wants to control your identity. You're not allowed to self-identify as feminine. You're not allowed to be feminine in your own unique way. You have to be his definition of femininity. All of that is under the umbrella of contempt. So attacking your sense of self because they want to psychologically abuse you, and usually the abuse is just they want to manipulate you so that they can control you, so that you stay in your place. And then defensiveness, seeing yourself as the victim in an effort to ward off a perceived attack and reverse the blame. So, like in the example where the guy's looking at the girl's boobs, and then you say, "Hey, it hurt my feelings when you were looking at her boobs at the restaurant. That hurt my feelings because your eyes weren't on me. Your eyes were on her the whole time." Then he gets defensive. Yeah, he's getting defensive because he doesn't want to take accountability for what he did wrong. He doesn't want to apologize. So he's constantly defending himself. So he's not on your team, he's actually against you. He doesn't care about your feelings. That's why he's defensive. If he truly cared about your feelings, he would instantly apologize. Well, I mean, I don't even recommend being with a guy who would do that in the first place, but if he cared about your feelings, he would instantly apologize. He would go out of his way to do what makes you feel comfortable. If anything, he'd be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, that was very immature of me. I shouldn't have done that. I was having a weak moment. I really need to work on that." Nope. He's defensive. And then there's stonewalling. which is another thing that happens in codependent relationships, withdrawing as a way to avoid conflict in efforts to convey disapproval, distance, and separation. He's going into his man cave for the next 3 hours. Stonewalling. Oh, he doesn't want to deal with the kids. You're getting on his nerves. Yeah, he's going to go play video games for the next 6 hours. Stonewalling. You ask him about bills and then he says, "Oh, I don't want to talk about it. Let's change the subject." Stonewalling. He refuses to talk to you about deeper issues. He refuses to talk to you because he's scared that if you argue that you're going to expose his flaws. And he doesn't want to have to defend himself, so he's like, "No, I'll just go ahead and stonewall you." Why do you always want to talk about this? Like he'll start gaslighting you and saying things like, "Why do you always ask me how much money I have? Why do you always ask me about the bills?" He will start deflecting basically. So deflecting or stonewalling using silence, like he just won't talk at all. He won't respond. Some men, they can stonewall via text or phone calls. So that's one of their tactics to humble you. It's a way to show you, "I don't need you," or "I don't like how you're behaving." These are the men who slam doors. They'll go into the bedroom, they'll slam the door. So they're withdrawing as a way to avoid conflict. They're dominating the conversation by saying, "Hey, this conversation is done. Like, I'm walking away." This is my form of social power, basically, is the fact that I can walk away from you at any given moment. I can stonewall emotionally. A lot of men will stonewall you emotionally. Another sign of codependency is getting mad that something or someone else makes them happy, thinking that's a threat. So these are the men who don't want you to have friends. If you go over into red pill spaces and stuff, they talk a lot about how to manipulate a woman. They'll say that they don't want their women to have friends. Yeah, that's because those guys are emotionally codependent on you. They want you to be their source of emotional happiness. And you cannot have any emotional happiness outside of him. Yeah, that's codependency. That's not love. So always ask a man if he's married. If you have an uncle or a brother or somebody who's married, ask him, "Why do you love your wife?" If he says stuff like, "Oh, well, it's because she puts me first." Okay, that's actually codependency. Your life revolves around them. That's codependency. She puts me first. Okay, putting you first would mean you come before my mental health. You come before my physical health. You come before my children. That's codependency. That's not love. It's not love. Look at the charts on the screen. That's not love. If your life revolves around them, so if you are male centered, you are codependent. I said what I said. Look at the chart. Another way that I know that a lot of marriages are codependent is because keeping the marriage feels like a full-time job, constant effort. Women will spend their free time reading marriage books, going to counseling, signing up for therapy, saving the money for therapy, watching videos, trying to figure out how to keep it spicy in the bedroom, learning what his diet is so you can cook for him, so you can try to impress him. So keeping the relationship feels like a full-time job. That is actually under the umbrella of codependency. It shouldn't feel like a full-time job. It shouldn't feel like you have to give up your career and this is your new career, or like you have two jobs. So you just worked a 10-hour shift and then you come home and you do 10 more hours worth of work with the kids. So now you're too tired to do your self-care. You're too tired to do your passions. This is why a lot of married women gain weight, they get gray hair, they age fast, because they're actually in a codependent relationship. That's a sign of codependency. So look at your friends and family. Do you have any family members where the guy looks really good and then the woman looks like somebody's auntie? The woman looks like somebody's lost big mama? Yeah, that's codependency. Another way that I know a lot of marriages are codependent is because a part of codependency is putting other people's needs above your own. That's actually codependent because you're neglecting yourself. That's self-neglect. So neglect is a form of abuse. So you're basically lighting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. One really famous quote that is very codependent is whenever a guy says, "If you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best." That's codependency. So they're saying, if you can't deal with my abuse, if you can't deal with my absolute worst qualities, if you don't allow me to break your boundaries, then you don't deserve me at my best. And it's like, dude, there is no best. If you're an abuser, narcissist, horrible person, there is no best. So that's actually a codependent, gaslighting, fake inspirational quote. And then when people say, oh, but he's your husband. And does that mean that it's okay for him to break my boundaries? Does that mean that it's okay for him to abuse me because he's my husband? So, because he has this title of being a husband, suddenly anything goes because you signed the papers. Too bad. That's actually codependency. It's putting a title and putting a piece of paper above a human being, putting a piece of paper above the well being of a woman and children. Another sign of codependency is when your entire day revolves around his mood. So if he's feeling grumpy, now you don't want to go out because he's in a bad mood or everything is ruined. If he's having a bad day, everybody's having a bad day. If he's feeling grumpy, everybody's feeling grumpy. If he's complaining on the date, you're not going to enjoy yourself now. That's a sign of codependency because your emotions are enmeshed with his. So, whatever his emotional state is, that's going to be your emotional state. A lot of empaths are codependent. And I'm not really into a lot of the spiritual community stuff, but I hear a lot of people saying, I'm an empath. I can feel others' emotions. Sis, you just admitted that you're actually codependent. So if he's angry, you're angry. If he's depressed, you're depressed. He's having a bad day, you're having a bad day. He's broke, busted, and disgusted, you're broke, busted, and disgusted. Codependency. You have an external locus of control. So whatever his roller coaster of emotions are, that's going to be your roller coaster of emotions. That's codependency. Another thing I've noticed about a lot of marriages is that you're not allowed to make any decisions on your own. So that's actually another sign of codependency. I can't do anything unless my husband says so. I have to ask permission. I have to ask for an allowance. I have to ask if I can hang out with my girlfriends. I have to ask if and when I can go to the grocery store. I have to ask about what I can wear. Oh, am I allowed to wear a bikini at the beach? Am I allowed to wear a crop top? Do you like weaves and wigs and makeup? Am I allowed to wear that? Yeah, that's codependency. You have to ask permission. You can't make your own decisions about anything anymore. When I use that term codependency, it really just means you have no boundaries, no emotional boundaries. So, like, you take his emotions as being your fault. Oh, he cheated on me. It must be my fault for not being sexy enough. It must be my fault for not making him loved enough. It must be my fault because I provoked him to anger. That's why he slapped me in the face. That's why he punched me in the face. Every emotion and action that he takes is your fault. That is codependent thinking. Savior complex. How can I fix him? He's my project that I'm working on. How can I psychoanalyze him and spiritualize everything and pray for him and whatever? Pray, fast, drink water and chicken broth for 40 days so I can go on a fast and read scriptures so that I can fix my husband or save him spiritually. How can I conjure up some of my ancestors and do all these rituals, mix some essential oils up so that I can get him to behave how I want him to behave? That's codependency. And this is why I say that when it comes to spiritual stuff, I only like the spiritual stuff that overlaps with science because some of this stuff about like SPs or twin flames or whatever being equally yoked and unequally yoked, and you have to pray for him and do all this other stuff. It's like, okay, that just sounds like codependency. It just sounds like he's not the one. He's mistreating me, and I'm making all of these excuses. I'm blaming the devil. I'm blaming his bipolar. I am blaming his anxiety or blaming myself and constantly on a mission to fix and save him. That is, by definition, codependency. A lot of spiritual practices promote codependency between men and women. If you don't believe me, go read your Bible. Go ahead and look up all of the different law of attraction. Go look up all of the different spiritual communities and see what they have to say about relationships and see if you can pinpoint any quotes or scriptures that have been used to promote codependency, because saying that two have become one, that is absolutely codependency. So you're telling me that my identity and my body have and my spirit have been enmeshed with another person. That is incredible codependency. So I'm not even myself anymore. We are now functioning as a unit. That is codependency. I said what I said. Look at the screen. I'm going to be showing all these different images of like what codependency is with all these bullet points and stuff. That's codependency. Two have become one is codependency. Another thing I've noticed about a lot of marriages is the woman doesn't want to risk losing him, so she will stuff her feelings, she will be quiet, she won't speak up, she'll be silent because she doesn't want to risk him getting angry. She doesn't want to risk him using the Darvo manipulation tactics against her. She doesn't know that that's what he's doing, but every time she brings up one of his flaws, he gets defensive, and then he starts bringing up all of her flaws so that he can deflect the attention back onto her. He'll try to turn the tables back onto her. That's a codependent relationship. Those are the type of men who have an attitude where it's like, I can call out your flaws, but you can't call out mine. The whole submission talking point. So kind of like thinking, feeling, and believing whatever the man thinks, feels, and believes. So whatever he thinks, you're going to follow it. Whatever he feels, you're going to follow it. Whatever his belief systems are, you're going to follow those things. That's codependency, because you're literally lacking in independence. You don't have your own mind. You don't have your own decisions you want to make. You don't have your own thoughts, your own personality, your own desires, your own career goals. Everything is centered around his career, his goals. Where does he want to live? Okay, he got a job in a new city, so you're going to move to that city that you don't want to live in because he wants to move there. And maybe he enticed you by saying that by having more money, he's going to be able to give more stuff to you, but you won't ever know that for sure. So you're risking your life, your well being, and your physical and emotional stability so that you can hopefully stand on this man's word that it'll be better in a new city. Sounds like codependency to me. Another pattern in a lot of marriages is approval seeking. So, needing the man's approval, you don't care if his actions hurt you because he will blame it on past traumas. He will blame his behavior on not having the skills to be a good husband, but like you will bypass that. You'll just be like, okay, well, he's still learning. And then you just keep allowing him to cross your boundaries and hurt you. No, just because you've been traumatized doesn't mean it's okay for you to traumatize me. Just because you've been neglected emotionally doesn't mean it's okay for you to emotionally neglect me. Just because your parents were narcissists doesn't mean it's okay for you to be a narcissist with me. Another thing I've noticed is the women who have a hard time detaching and focusing on themselves, even if they're in a relationship or a marriage. They don't know how to detach from that man. They don't know who they are outside of him. They don't know who they are outside of men. They don't know who they are outside of the marriage. So that's another aspect. They can't even focus on themselves because their whole world revolves around how to please him. So they're listening to all these podcasts, how to be a good wife, how to be a housewife. They're spending all these hours cooking and cleaning. They don't know how to detach, whether it's mentally, whether it's physically. Some women won't go on trips if their husband can't go. They won't go out because their husband or boyfriend doesn't want to go. They won't make new friends unless their husband or boyfriend is also friends with those people. Another gaslighting thing that guys will say is, why do you have to be so difficult? And what they really mean is, why do you have to make this hard for me? Why do I have to put in work to be with you? I want this to be easy. So that's basically like a silencing tactic. And a lot of codependent people, they come from narcissistic parents, whether you had one narcissistic parent or both narcissists. And a lot of codependent people come from at least one narcissistic parent. So, some signs that you grew up with an emotionally immature parent is maybe you explain everything you're doing, you're kind of over explaining yourself, you're sacrificing yourself on behalf of others. So you're literally acting as a constant martyr. You're being a constant emotional martyr for everyone around you. And then if you try to set boundaries or stand up for yourself, suddenly you're so difficult and you're hard to be around. And so this is where guys get that phrase where they're like, "Oh, I want you to be my peace." That's codependency. You should have peace within yourself. Another human being can't be your peace. That's literally a codependent emotional enmeshment. So feeling like you're a burden on somebody else, that's another sign that your parents were emotionally immature, because a narcissist is really just someone who is very emotionally immature. They never like matured past childhood, and they're bad at regulating their own emotions, and so they want to control other people around them in hopes that by controlling others, that will regulate them. Another sign of codependency is if your parents had you because they wanted you to meet their emotional needs. I feel like a lot of women have children because they want the child to fulfill her emotional voids. And then as soon as that child starts having its own identity, its own interests, as soon as you start developing a personality that is separate from your parents, then they lose interest. That's a sign that you had codependent parents. They were emotionally codependent. And so, as soon as you decided you did not want to be like them, or you didn't want to do what they said in terms of your career or your religion or sexuality, is another one, yeah, then they become very upset. So, I know that this has happened like in my family before. But yeah, like let's say maybe you have a Christian background and maybe you had a sibling that was gay or something like that. So, if the parents had that child because they were hoping that the child could be like this good, upstanding Christian man, that is still a way of having a child to fulfill your emotional needs. You cannot control another human being's free will. But if you're codependent, you will try. And codependent people are usually the ones who have these children because they're hoping to redo their life based on the child's life, so living vicariously, or they're hoping that that child can be their retirement plan. So that's financial codependency. Or they're having the child because they want to brainwash that child into behaving a certain way. So that's emotional codependency. Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.